Hi everyone, it's the Manga Viewer, and today we'll be talking about what happened in this chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 343. And my god, it was a great chapter, because first of all, I got my theories right, second of all, it connected the other manga of My Hero Academia, which is My Hero Academia Vigilantes, all in one chapter. And it's just like basically the final chapter of like the preparation of the second war that's about to happen. So let's dive right into all of this, but first I want to remind you this is a spoiler video, so if you're not caught up with the manga, proceed with your own caution, you have been warned. And if you enjoy my content and you want to keep them coming and you want to help me out, feel free to join the channel or thumbs up this video, both is a great option. Also feel free to follow me on Twitter or check out my Twitter, because I post sometimes the leaks or the summaries themselves, so feel free to check them out. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on. Now, surprisingly enough, this chapter opened up exactly how I told you it will open up. Like last week when I talked about how the chapter will happen, what will happen in the chapter, it came out exactly as I told you. The chapter opens up with All For One talking with himself, saying that lies doesn't work against him, which is pretty interesting because the movie Batman is coming out like in March 4. And it's also like about lies and have like some sort of a tie about that, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, him like bringing that up and saying that he does have a quirk that kind of like tells him that there's someone lying to him right now lines up perfectly with the My Hero Academia Vigilantes that I told you about, because one of the theories that actually came up is that Tsukuji, like the All For One, the All Might police helper that's with him all the time, his sister does have a similar quirk to that. So I highly recommend you going to the My Hero Academia Vigilantes and read it. I know some of you like might not like it, but it's actually a pretty good manga and it does tie up with the My Hero Academia. Like after reading the Vigilantes manga, you're gonna realize, oh, there's a lot of interesting details here and there, and it does tie up with a lot of backstories. So anyway, he then receives a call from Aoyama's mother, who kind of like disguises the conversation between them two about wine, and how Aoyama is going to bring him some wine tomorrow. And by the wine, if someone like doesn't understand what's that reference, it basically means DEKU. Like he's going to bring you DEKU in tomorrow, and he'll kind of like be disguised and all of that. So that was like a pretty interesting way of putting it like in the wine sort of way. Then in the next day we move on to see DEKU like walking towards Aoyama, and he's surprised that Aoyama is there even though Aoyama was in prison. Like how the hell did that happen? He then tells him like, you know, his parents arranged a lawyer of some sort to come like walk him out of that prison. And then he tells like Midoriya before he walks out to tell the other students like, hey, Aoyama is out now. He tells him like, do you want to know the real plan of All For One and what does he want to do? So that was actually pretty interesting, because up until now, like I've been telling you, we haven't heard All For One's real plan, and I was betting like my old theories that it's going to be revealed in this chapter, and it did happen, so it did make me like a lot happy. Also, like in Black Clover, a lot of my theories actually came true, so that was like pretty cool. But anyway, we then see Aoyama explaining the plot of the real plan of All For One, which is not just like the destruction of Japan itself, but just kind of like devoting the whole economy, the yen, the electricity, the water, everything to ruin. Basically just kind of like destroy Japan at all. So after like explaining this whole plot of what's actually the real plan of All For One is, Midoriya is like really shocked. He's like, dude, chill out, like it's still too early to think about like this chaotic plan or this chaotic way of All For One. He then tells him like, hey man, I'm sorry, but the safety of my parents comes first. And then after that, we see All For One coming like from behind Aoyama. When I was in the store reading the magazine, I like looked at All For One and I was like really shocked. But in the same time, I went like to the lady store and she was like, All For One looks like Voldemort in here, which you know, Harry Potter is pretty popular, so that's why it was pretty hilarious. But it's actually like came up to me and I was like thinking, but hold on a minute, like before even like finishing the whole chapter, I was like, hold on. So if that actually happened, that means that they are doing that because they know willingly 100% that All For One does have this sort of like lie detecting quirk, and that they are like kind of like trying not to lie in some sort of way. So that was actually pretty clever, and I feel like this whole plan was actually like the real plan of the heroes. Basically, as I told you, lowering all the villains in some sort of place where there will be no one harmed and stuff, and then actually coming back and do all of those like one head-on battle of like the villains villains versus the heroes, with the heroes having the advantage. So I felt like that was pretty clever, and I like went on to read the complete chapter. It turned out to be exactly true, so I was really happy. Deku then gets basically shocked. He's like, what the hell just happened? Like, I throwed my trust into Aoyama. He tells him like, I trusted you. Why did you do that? And then All For One is basically laughing hysterically. He says like, did your parents tell you about this real plan, Aoyama? And he basically says yes, and he tells him that his parents are like saying that they will be happy in the world that All For One will create. And he basically smiles, and he knows that he basically won. But what comes surprisingly next is basically Aoyama turning his back on All For One and basically shooting him with a laser beam. Of course, All For One deflects it, and Aoyama goes basically to Deku's side. So that was like a pretty interesting plan, and I know immediately that my prediction, or like my hunch, was actually correct, so that was pretty cool. But surprise, surprise, All For One deflects the laser beam, and he tells him like, you are a fool for also like doing that. He tells him, well, you are the big fool because we were able to fool you. Like, this was like pretty hard, and it was like the only way we could do to fool an opponent with like a high IQ level like you. And he basically turns to Deku's side, and he tells him like, you were able to lie pretty good. So that was like a pretty funny moment when he was like, your lie is pretty good. No, your lie is pretty good. But anyway, then Aoyama tells All For One that I will be the one facing you, or I will be facing you to protect my family. It's interesting to see like how Aoyama's perspective changed, and it could have easily been the same if he hadn't like had such good friends and such a good teacher. Basically, Aizawa telling him that, hey man, I don't guarantee your safety, but what you can do right now is basically protect the school and protect the student. So I feel like that was a pretty good way to put it that way, and just, you know, Aizawa thinking in that way is pretty impressive. So I like really applause for all the UA school basically, because without them, Aoyama could have easily like turned his back against them and went with All For One. All For One basically gets confused by what just happened. He's like, I have this lie detecting quirk, why didn't I like receive that? Why didn't I get any signs? Like, I talked with Aoyama's mother and she basically didn't lie to me, so why is this happening? He then realizes that, hey man, like, I gotta stop worrying about what just happened. I have One For All in front of me, so I just gotta do what I have to. He basically then says, like, Tomura just basically used the search quirk to search like for any heroes that are nerdy, but there is none, so you can't win against us. And then basically an Avengers in-game moment happens where a portal just opens behind All For One and all the villains just pour in. And on the other side, also like basically another portal opens and the heroes arrive with like Deku's side and Momo and everyone else from the high heroes. So that was actually pretty interesting, kind of like having this sort of like Easter eggs happening here and there, from like the Batman movie to the Avengers Endgame movie and a lot of other movies as well. So that was pretty interesting. And basically Aoyama tells him, you are the fool and we are here to stop you. And basically he thinks that All For One, the thing that All For One hates the most is basically him realizing that there is still some hope, there is still some light to shine on the heroes. And that's basically what All For One hates the most. And he basically tells him, we are facing you right here, right now. Now, one of the interesting things that I read and I noticed in this chapter is basically Deku's costume. A lot of people have been asking me, like, what does it look like? Do we have a clear picture on it? No, we do not have like a clear picture on it, and what does it differentiate from his other costumes? But it's kind of like a mix between his normal costume, his vigilante costume, and his sports costume. It's kind of like a mix between all those three, but without a mask on. I thought that was actually pretty impressive. Just like Deku without his mask on, kind of like resembling All Might, because All Might doesn't wear a mask, except like for his deflecting body, which is another sentence. But that was basically the whole chapter, kind of like the final chapter to set up everything in order to kind of like start up the battle. I feel like if this battle like want to kind of like resume up, I feel like it will probably last maybe 40 chapters, 45 chapters till the end of the story. I'm not really sure, but I feel like it will be pretty exciting. I feel like also the heroes though do have a plan to kind of like divide all the villains away. Like everything is happening exactly as I'm telling you. Like the heroes will have a plan to kind of like divide the villains away and to kind of like separate them from each other so that they can have actually a chance against them. Because if you actually compare the size and the numbers of the villains against the size and the number of the heroes, the villains do have an advantage, especially with Toga having twice his blood in her hands. So that's basically chaotic. So We just gotta imagine and wish for the heroes to win. Anyways, this is the full chapter. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be posting next week about what's my predictions when the official chapter comes out. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any other theories or if you have any other thoughts about what's the next chapter is going to be, feel free to comment them down below, and I would love to hear them and read them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have been the Manga Viewer, and I'll see you all next time. Johnny.